let's just get into it. So, one day, Christian's hanging out in a room, but then they hear a tectonic explosion, which blows down their castle, basically. Slash house. It goes, Christian's, dang it. Then he jumps in the closet, grabbing the Hokage things so they don't get ripped, because they're actually pretty important. He goes, he says, what the hell was that? Then he's just Sand Ninja, Sound Ninja, Rain Ninja, or Stone Ninja, and then Cloud Ninja. Brings a full-scale attack, huh? Christian says, not on my watch, and activates his Uzumaki gun, grabs one of the Hokage guards and puts it on, and goes, it's my turn to take action. Then jumps up in the air, slaughtering tons of shinobi, going, and not even stand a chance against his technical skill. Then he goes, fire style, fireball jutsu, killing 300 more, then going, then Christian heads to Leaf Barrier Force, and puts down, and then throws 1,000 kunai where all of them are, where all the enemy ninja are. Then he teleports all of them, slaughtering them all easily. Going, then the Cloud uses their 8 tails to try and get them. Stone uses whatever tail beast they have. Misty use their 5 tails and 6 tails. 5 tails and other tails. Christian says, dang it, I need something else. Christian bites his finger, then goes, summoning Gawabuta, Gamakiti, Toad Army. We go, he says, and for the last one, he says, Susanoo. Okay, no, he doesn't have Susanoo. Oh yeah, he does have a quarter of the 9 tails, remember that. No, he has the other 50% half. He goes, Cube. Then releases the 9 tails. And a full-scale attack. He turns into the normal 9 tails, not the actual 9 tails. Not into the chakra form. He goes, Kurama! Minato says, that's him, alright. Then he says, then all of them shoot tail beast bombs. Kurama shoots his own tail beast bomb, beating all the tail beast bombs. Then Christian goes on the Hokage statue, and all the tail beasts shoot their Biju bombs at him. He uses the jutsu that the 4th Hokage used to block the 9 tails and absorbs all of them. He goes, Minato is long out of the village. Him and the Uzumaki family have to escape. Christian throws 2 more kunai and defeats all the tail beasts. He says, looks like there's only one last thing I can do. All the tail beasts are out. Fighting Kurama. Kurama's really losing ground. Christian says, Mr. Kurama, I won't let you lose. He goes, ah! And all the tail beasts see what he's doing. His chakra chains turn bigger, 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 until they wrap around him. He turns into a giant chakra chain beast. It's a giant wolf chakra beast. He goes, Roar! And goes, drum, 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 coming and slashing them, going boom. Christian is absolutely destroying them, going boom, boom. He says, Kurama, get the seal ready. He goes, right. Then Christian says, here, I guess I'll lend myself for the village. Christian says, Kurama, please try and turn Trump into a human after this war and tell them what I did. He says, right. He says, please don't do it. He says, I have to. He says, get out. He goes, Shadow Clone Jutsu. He summons 8 Shadow Clones. And then he summons 7 Shadow Clones, and they say, and he goes, and then he says, Reaper Death Seal. And he's gonna seal all of them in him, so they die with him. He says, Reaper Death, and holding all of them. He just falls to the floor because of how much chocolate he has. He says, now the 8-side seal. And they all go for a strike, but Kurama blocks it, smacking them all back. Kurama turns back into his stomach, and he goes, He seals them all inside of him. He goes, then falls and dies. The third Hokage picks up his body and he sees a note. Then Kurama comes out of the seal and he goes into like a baby fox, and then he turns into a mid-sized fox, being able to talk. He tells the third Hokage all that happened, and he says that he will be announced as his own Hokage, he will be announced on the Great Stone Faces and will call the Uzumaki clan back. He calls back the Uzumaki clan, and they all come back saying, "What happened to the village? It's in ruins." He says, "Yes." He says, "Where are all the enemy ninja and all the Bijus?" He says, "They're gone." He says, "Who took care of them? They have to be here of the world, of the village." He says, "I'm sorry to say this, Minato, but that was your son." He says, "And he's dead now." Kushina rolls up in tears. Kushina's eyes start to get watery, and then she starts bursting out crying, saying that her son is dead, and it's all her fault because they left him there. He says, "Well, we will be doing one monument. We will be doing something for him." He says, "What will you be doing?" He says, "We're going to be putting up a statue of him. A statue, and he'll be a part of the Great Stone Faces, because he fought like a Hokage. He fought seven-tailed beast, beat all the enemy ninja." Then Hiruzen says, "Minato, I know you were helping your clan out, but I am disappointed." He says, "I'm sorry, Lord Third." He says, "I am disappointed that you didn't go spring into action. Well, your son had to hold off your garps and then fight for you." He says, "Again, I'm sorry, Lord Third." He says, "You will no longer be the fourth Hokage." No, he will be the fourth. He says, "You'll be fourth Hokage, but we will be finding a candidate soon, because you are certainly not suited for the Hokage job. If you don't change in the next year, we will be choosing a candidate." He says, "Yes, sir." Then they go to check his body, and Lord Third says, "It's a miracle! Minato! Kushina!" They all say yes. He says, "Your son is still alive, but with a tiny bit of life. Please, send Shinobi out to go get Lady Tsunade." Minato says, "Yes, sir." They they send out Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, Naruto, Haruto, Hinata, Kiba, Shino, Shikamaru, and Choji, and Ino. He says, and Kakashi and Guy. He says, "Kakashi, what's the mission?" He says, "We need to find Lady Tsunade for the Hokage's son." He says, "But we're all here." He says, "And isn't Christian dead?" He says, "No, he has the slightest bit of life on him." He goes, "Okay." Then they rush out, and then a couple of days later, he's about to die, but then the third Hokage from the medical unit, they develop something that can help him heal until Tsunade comes. Healing tags. They place it on him, and he's recovering his chakra and strength. Then when Tsunade arrives, he says, "Where is he?" They say, "Right here." She says, "What are these tags on him?" Hiruzen says that they're new healing tags that the Leaf Village has invented to help him. She says, "That's smart, but I need to heal him. Everyone out of the room." They go, "Yes, Lady Tsunade." Except for Thunder. Sakai says, "Good luck, Tsunade." Then an hour later, she's super tired and he's not healed yet. She says, "Shizuna, do you mind healing him for a little bit while I regain my chakra?" She says, "Yes, Lady Tsunade," and just starts healing. While Tsunade's putting a healing tag on her head, on her face, so then like it's healing her. When she's back to full strength, she heals him, going until finally he wakes up. Next. A couple of days later, third Hokage says that but Minato didn't change. Minato did change a lot. Like, he had a huge development because he likes his Hokage title. He likes to help. It's just that he forgot. He did need to help his family. Minato is told by the third Hokage when Christian hits 16, he will be the new Hokage because he had sacrificed him. He went all out as a Hokage, defeating over thousands of shinobi in battle, and took down 8-tailed beasts. He says, "Yes, our third." He says, "I'd like you to take him on a training journey. Teach him the best. I want him trained by the best Anbu, best people in the village. So he'll be up to the Kage level, and he will be ready to train once he reaches 16. Once he'll be 16, he'll be Hokage." In 1.5 years after his training, Minato gets a call for the 5 Kage Summit. And Christian comes in as a guard. When I do this, Christian's there. He says, "Minato, why do you have a kid with you?" And his guard, he says, "This kid took out 1,000 of each of your shinobi." He says, "So that's why our shinobi went missing." "Minato, you bastard." Christian says, "Don't blame him. Blame yourselves. You sent 1,000 ninja and all 8-tailed beasts to attack our village." He says, "Yeah, we did, because we were sick of you guys having the 9 tails." He says, "More like you when you forced the entire village." He says, "Am I right, people?" They all say it. And they're actually speaking the truth, saying that A did force them to, because he had the strongest tailed beast, besides the Leaf Village that had the 9 tails. So they could easily be taken out. He says, "Christian will soon be in the Hokage in 1.5 years." He says, "He's too young to be." He says, "Lord Third said that he will be Hokage for what he did. He took down 1,000 of your shinobi. Then, after that, sealed away 8-tailed beast bombs, and all the tailed beasts are inside of him right now." Christian says, "Ow, dang it, my head hurts." Then he yells, "Yuki, can you stop spitting ink everywhere?" He says, "Sorry, we're having a fight here." He goes, "That's fine." He says, "I'm keeping the tailed beasts because you all don't know how to use tailed beasts. And you're not even supposed to use them. You're supposed to keep them as an asset to the village. So they'll be staying with me. The leaf will have the power, and we will not use it for terrorizing." Christian, 1.5 years later, finally masters Sage Mode. And he's mastered the 9 Tails Chakra. He's learned every natural element, he's also learned Shadow Style, has True Seeking Orbs, both Rinnegan, he has Yellow Rinnegan. He's insanely powerful. Then when it's time, he is called into the office, Hokage office, and he says, "Yes, sir." He says, "Today's your day as Hokage inauguration." He says, "Yes, sir." He's given the Hokage hat and the Hokage vest. He says, "This is amazing." He's given an option to have the Hokage cape, the Hokage hat, or the Hokage thing that Minato has. He says, "You can choose 2." Christian says, "Then I want the Hokage hat, and I want the robe." He says, "Good choice. Here you go." Wait, hold on. I think it was different for everything. So Christian is now the 5th Hokage, with Gaara being the 5th Kazekage. He goes, ha! He's super intelligent, insanely strong. Then it's time for his inauguration. He says, "Thank you, everybody." Everyone says, "Woohoo!" He's a hero. And they don't care anymore if he's a demon. He saved them all from village destruction and total annihilation. He's super nice. Helps out the villagers with shadow clones. Doesn't scold anyone. Has a great time. But then, about a month after being Hokage, he gets a 5 Kage summit. He says, okay. Then he makes it there and says, who should I choose as my guards? He says, Nagato would be nice. Let's ask him. I'm gonna go ask him. He says, Nagato, would you like to be one of my guards during the Hokage thing? He says, sure, I'd like to be a guard. He says, right. Nagato puts on a pretty good outfit. And then he also asks another person, which is Shikamaru. And Shikamaru easily agrees, saying, yes, sure. Then he heads down and sits in his seat. He says, who are you? You're not the Hokage. He says, yes, I am. He says, I am now. He says, Goddess says, congratulations. Christian says, hey, Gaara! So you became the 5th Kazekage? He says, yeah. Christian goes, yeah. He says, so Raikage, what'd you call this meeting? He says, I want the 8 tails and 2 tails back. He says, well, sorry, you don't know how to use tailed beasts. You don't even know how to take care of them. So no. He says, I'm sorry, but we'll have to do this by force. He says, so, you're asking for a fight? He says, yeah. The Cloud Village versus the Leaf. Me versus you and our royal guards against each other. Kristen says, I'm down. They head to the 5 Kage Summit. Fight, please. Christian says, Nagato, you can fight first. He says, sure. So instantly, Dario would go for a strike. Nagato would say, almighty poosh, and blast him back. He goes, ugh, and would hit the ground, rolling back, going, instantly defeating him. He says, good shot. And it's just Shikamaru versus the Stalia guy. Shikamaru's intense strategy would make him trap him and then shadow strangle him. He'd say, I yield. Then Christian would say, Shikamaru, you can let him go. He says, right. Now it's Christian versus the Raikage. Instantly, Raikage would disappear and seemingly punch him in the face. But then he disappears and says, I cannot fail for my village. Then he throws a kunai right behind him. And then backflip going Rasengan and hitting him. He goes, he says, Sage Mode. And activates basic Sage Mode and disappears. He says, above you. No, I'm below you. Now I'm on the left. Now I'm on the right. No, wait. I'm right behind you. It hits him with a Rasengan. He says, I'm not even trying. Now get to work. He would say, Aah! Go for a punch. Christian activates his yellow Renegon, which has got 6 tomos in it. He says, almighty poosh, blasting him right in the air. He goes, Aah! He says, can you go now? He says, you might want to go before I turn you into a tree. He says, wood style deep forest emergence. As big as Madara's. He says, gotta. May. What's his name again? Onoki. Who's next? Gaara, Mei, Onoki. Yep, so I'd like to have a peace treaty with you three in case any wars come up. They agree instantly because they want to have peace treaty since they're probably they're all probably the weakest. With Onoki being a tiny bit stubborn, but then he realizes this kid is very trustworthy. He would not betray. He says, send 10 shinobi every day from your village to our village and give them a path. They'll be trained by my best jonin, so then they'll be able to protect themselves. They say yes. Then Christian's reading his book in the Hokage office while doing work, going, And he's working there tirelessly, but he's not really caring. Well, eating ramen one day, he's also on his computer because they finally developed computers. He goes, saying, this is great, I'm actually doing a good thing. And then about 5 months later, he gets an email from Gaara saying a 5 Kage Semi. He emails Gaara saying, already? There was already one just 5 months ago. He says the Raikage wants another one talking about. He said, damn that Raikage. He says, wait a minute. But then he looks at the invitation and says, oh wait, no, it was called by Mei. He says, okay, I'll go. I'll be there soon. I'll be there in a couple of seconds. He goes, okay. Then says, Shikamaru, Nagato. They both appear, and he says, let's go. Then he flying rushes them to the spot instantly, going, Christian says, Mei, Gaara, Onoki, Raikage, status report on your villages. He says, Gaara says, it's gone up by about 20% since we've got that training. Mei says, about 15%. Onoki says, about 30%. Our shinobi are getting way stronger and more nicer to each other because of your Jonin teachings. He says, thank you. He says, so, Mei, why'd you call this mean? He says, well, also, he says, where's Raikage? He says, Raikage walks in and says, sorry I'm late. He says, okay. He says, everyone, I want you to bring in your Jinchuriki holders. It says, I want to see if they're worthy enough to have their tailed beast back. Then, they line them up. There's Gaara, Yugito, Gaara, Yugito, Yagura, Roshi, Han, Utataka, Fu, and B. He says, alright guys. He says, Gaara, what do you think tail beasts are for? He says, to be treated carefully. He says, let me just explain to you. He says, you all aren't ready yet. Christian says, we will split the tail beast between the villages. Killer Bee, here. And places the details back in him. He says, Raikage, no more threatening. He says, fine. He says, I see trust in you, B. He says, thank you, my brother. Then they fist bump going, hey! Then he looks at Gaara saying, here you go. And then implants it in him going, boom. He says, Yugito, what's you see tail beasts for? She says, I see Madatabi as my friend. He says, and then implants it. Plants the tail beast in. With 2 tails, he says, Yagura, he says, a cold weapon. He says, well, you're not getting him back. He says, He says, "Father," he says, "please respect him." He says, "Fine, I actually do like him. I actually do like Isobu." He goes, boom, and implants it into him. He says, "Roshi, do you miss your tail beast?" He says, "I do very much. I do miss Son Goku." He seals inside of him going, He says, "Do you miss Kokuo, Han?" He says, "Yes." Then seals inside of him. Then he just gives everyone back their tail beast. Besides, he says, "There you go, everybody. I have the 9 tails. The full 9 tails. He will be under my control, because I do not..." He is a good guy. He says, "Wait a minute. What's your gender?" He says, "I think I'm a boy." And he goes, "Okay." He says, "Also, just to make sure you guys aren't... Just to make sure, do this." They do a jutsu to turn the tail beasts into like little animals. He says, "There you go. They'll be less harmless when you want them to come out." They go, "Okay." But then someone appears within the Katsuki robe. Kristen says, "Universal pull," and pulls him towards him. And says, "Who are you?" Then he just goes through him. He says, "What the?" Then he disappears and goes, and says, "I am Madara Uchiha." He says, "Bullshit, Madara Uchiha is dead." He says, "But I am Madara." He says, "I thought Madara had super long hair. And Madara wouldn't show his face in a barber shop." He says, "So you're not Madara." He says, "I am Madara, and I'm doing a project Suko no Mi." Then out of nowhere, people in rope things surround the thing. He's surround the perimeter of the thing, whatever it's called. He says, "Damn it, Jinchuriki! Scatter!" They all disappear. He says, "Almighty push." Shikamaru grabs Gaara and says, "We gotta go." While Nagato grabs Mei and Onoki, and A can get out himself. He goes, as he blows the place up. All the Akatsuki members are sent flying back. Christian says, Then Christian says, and then is about to break Toby's arm. But then he's kicked in the face, but doesn't even flinch by a random Shinip by Kisame. Then he punches him, killing Kisame. Then he says, then with the deafening bloodlust, they all run away. He says, and he says, "Alright, back to your respective villages." Christian heads back. But then he also says, he gets an email by Gaara saying that we have a war to fight, and I'm gonna ask all villages to team up. Christian says, "But we still have the threat of Orochimaru and the Akatsuki." He says, "True, but we need to do this." Christian says, "This emailing is too hard. Let's video chat." He says, "Alright." Christian presses a button to video chat, and then they talk. Christian says, "Alright. Plan." He said, then he adds A, Mei, and Onoki. He says, "We have a problem. We need to start an alliance. A, do you agree to this?" He goes, "Fine. Only because you gave B his tailed beast." He goes, "Good. Glad we're on good terms." He says, "Gather 1,000 shinobi each. I'll be getting my forces. And we'll meet up soon. If I see one simple fighting, those two who are starting it, even if they're from my village, are dying. I do not want fighting." Then he ends the meeting. Then he goes to the hidden leaf village to find out what Project Tsukunomi is. Then he calls Itachi Uchiha into the office. He says, Itachi, I have a question to ask. He says, yes, what is it? He says, do you know, I know you have a genjutsu called Tsukuyomi. He says, yes. He says, someone named Madara Uchiha, apparently calls himself Madara Uchiha, says that they're starting something called Project Tsukuyomi. Do you have anything to do with this? He says, no. Then he activates his ring on to see if he'll tell the truth, and he says, good. You are dismissed. He says, thank you. Christian summoned shadow clones to go look around the Leaf Library to find a book maybe about this. Then one of the shadow clones gasps and says, get over here, real one. Christian rushes over and says, give me it. He says, look. Then Christian grabs a book and they all poof. He looks in his office and reads and says, The Infinite Tsukuyomi, caused by Kaguya Otsutsuki. A user has to have the 10-tailed Biju, along with, then flips the page, two Rinnegan. Then they will pull off their horn, and then a red Rinne Sharingan will appear and cast the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Everyone who looks into the moon will be cast into a dream world. It can only be stopped by the Sage's Six Paths, or by the person who gets it being sealed. Christian puts it down and says, and calls all the 9 Chunins now. He says, what do you need, bro? He says, we have a big problem on our hands. As you know, there's a war coming up. He says, yes. He says, get Dad in here and get all the Jonin in here. Get the entire village. They say, alright, and then he calls the Hokage meeting and jumps on the top of the Hokage thing and says, fellow villagers, I have an emergency announcement. Everyone's kind of worried. He says, as you know, a war is coming. And something called Project Tsukuyomi. I researched into it, and it's the worst that could happen. It's an ultimate genjutsu, way stronger than any other genjutsu that puts you in a dream world. But here's the thing. We have to keep our tailed beast. We have to keep the 9 tails. If we keep it all, then Madara will not get it and cast the genjutsu. So we need to stand for ourselves. He says, who's with me? Everyone says, whoa. He says, next week will be the day we meet up. I have to go alert the other Kage. Kishin instantly pulls the thing and tells him what Project Tsukuyomi means. And they shout to their village. And he says, Kurama, we have to get ready. He says, right, kid. He says, but you need to go down a path. He says, you need to go down a path. The light side or the dark side. He says, I'm taking the light side. And he goes straight in and gets Nine Tails chakra mode. The first stage and goes. He goes. He says, you unlock the other forms when you gain my trust. He goes, right, Kurama. Then heads out. A week later, he heads to the front lines and goes. Then Christian pulls out a microphone and says, excuse me, hidden villages. I know we've had our troubles and difficulties, but with this Shinobi Alliance force, we can take down the Akatsuki, Orochimaru, and Madara, and finish our world that we've been working on for years. He says, most of the Cloud Ninja, Rain, they're mad saying, that guy killed my brother, killed my ancestors. But no one really wants to work with the Hidden Cloud for what they did, but they just stick with it. He says, now go! Kakashi rolls out a funny tear saying, such proudness. Then he heads to the bubble, and he tells Tsunade to come because he needs intelligence, and she's probably one of the smartest. He also needs Shikamaru, and he's staying there along with Mei and the Raikage. No, actually Mei's not there. Christian says, I brought Lady Tsunade in so we can help. He says, I can't do anything yet. Then they're watching the phones and they say that Naruto Uzumaki has... Oh yeah, Naruto's gonna be a lot weaker in this timeline. He does not have 9 tails, because Christian has the 100% 9 tails. Naruto just has perfect Sage mode. And he's just strong in general. So, after that they get an alert that Madara, the real Madara Uchiha, is there. And the whole forces were wiped out. They weren't killed, but they were defeated. He says that we need a teleportation technique. Person says, I'll go. Tsunade says, I'm coming too. He says, I'm going definitely. He says, Lord Raikage and Lady Hokage could probably make it. But sorry, Lady Tsunade and Lord Raikage could probably make it. But Lord Hokage, you cannot make it. He says, I'm going. Then they take him through and he goes and makes it to the battlefield where Mei and Gaara and Onoki are there. Christian goes, let's show him what us Kage can do. He says, so, Madara. Puts on his headband and does it and then activates QB chakra mode. Going and also activating his 9 tails Rinnegan. That's what it's called, 9 tails Rinnegan. He goes then pulls out his then he goes into KCM 2. And then he says, get ready guys. But then he says, kid, do it. He says, right, Kurama, and activates 6-pass Sage mode. Going and says, let's go Kage. They do it. And they have an epic explosive battle with Madara. Christian goes, but somehow Madara returned to 10 tails chakra mode. Christian says that he doesn't even have 10 tails, so how is that possible? Okay, look, he didn't transform into 6-pass Sage mode, turned into Kurama Link mode. Christian goes, but he does turn into 10 tails. No, actually. Well, Kakashi is fighting, Kakashi, Guy, Naruto. Fighting Obito. Naruto would probably die, almost. But with Taruto and Naruto there, they'd have another advantage. Christian says, after the defeat, but then after the Kage are wiped out by Madara, even Christian couldn't stand a chance against him. Because of how powerful he is. He goes, so after fighting a lot, he's really trying to defeat him. Then they head to the real front lines, while the rest of them are fighting the 10 tails. Christian appears going, they say, Obito's about to kill Naruto, and Taruto with one last fire blast. When they do, Christian appears in front of them, dispersing the attack, going, and then push the fire aside, going, so, Obito! Activating his 9 tails Rinnegan, then activating QB2. He says, I'll do you guys a favor and give you something all. Christian implants the Tenseigan in Naruto. He implants the Sharingan in Taruto, the Mangekyo Sharingan, the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. And then he implants boom, 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 Perfection Sage mode. Actually, no, he gives her the 100 healings mark. He says, let's go! It says, now that we all are ready, Naruto activates 10 Tag on Chakra mode. He says, Sasuke, my Brenda, here you go. Then implants the eternal Mangekyo going, boom, boom. Naruto goes, ah! And gets ready. Christian says, I've been outdone. Just kidding. And activates 6-pass Sage mode going, he says, Shinobi Alliance Force! Attack! They go, ah! And that's it for this part.